Ladies and gentlemen, what are the economic issues in Nepal? Economic growth and economic development are the main topics to be understood. Economic growth refers to the increase in the production of goods and services in a country over a certain period of time. It is generally measured through gross domestic product (GDP) or national income. Economic development is a broader concept. It includes economic growth along with improvement in quality of life, education, health, employment, infrastructure, and a reduction of poverty and inequality. What are the differences between growth and development? Ladies and gentlemen, there are several differences between growth and development. Economic growth means the uh, quantitative increase, and economic development means qualitative increase. Economic growth is it focuses on GDP, and economic development focuses on human welfare. Economic growth is a narrow concept, economic development is a broad concept. Economic growth income oriented, and economic development is welfare oriented. Some indicators of the economic development are here: increase in per capita income, employment generation, industrialization, poverty reduction, literacy and health improvement, infrastructure development. What are the challenges in Nepal? Ladies and gentlemen, poverty, unemployment, political instability, trade deficit, low industrialization, dependency on remittance. These are the major challenges in Nepal. What are the constitutional provisions? The Constitution of Nepal aims to establish socialism oriented economy, equitable distribution of resources, inclusive economic development, economic prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, there are directive principles. The Constitution directs the state to end economic inequality, promote national economy, ensure social justice. And we know economic growth increases income, whereas economic development improves overall living standards. Ladies and gentlemen, there are major aspects of economic development. What are the major aspects? Economic development is multidimensional and includes social, political, technological, environmental, and institutional changes. Major aspects are the point number one: economic aspect. Economic aspect increases in national income, industrial growth, and agricultural modernization. Ladies and gentlemen, point number two: social aspect, education, health, gender equality, social inclusion, and political aspect, political stability, good governance, rule of law, and technological aspect, innovation, ICT, information and communication technology development, modern technology use. And point number five: environmental aspect, sustainable development, conservation of the resources. Importance: improves quality of life, creates employment, reduces poverty, strengthens economy. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that economic development is not only economic progress but also social transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, what are the role of the public sector, private sector, and cooperative in economic development? Economic development requires participation of all sectors: private, public, and cooperative. Ladies and gentlemen, public sector. The public sector includes government owned organizations and institutions. Its roles are infrastructure development, public service delivery, regulation and policy formulation, social welfare programs, employment generation. What are the major problems? Bureaucracy, corruption, political interference are the major problems. Ladies and gentlemen, there are private sector also. The private sector includes privately owned business and industries. Their roles are investment and innovation, employment generation, industrial development, export promotion. Some challenges in Nepal: political instability, lack of investment, security, weak infrastructures are challenges in Nepal. What are the cooperative sector? Ladies and gentlemen, cooperatives are community based economic organizations. Roles of the cooperative sectors are poverty reduction, rural development, saving and credit mobilization, savings and credit mobilization, empowerment of local people. What are the constitutional provisions? The Constitution recognizes public sector, private sector, and cooperative sector. This is known as the three pillar economy of the Nepal. Ladies and gentlemen, balanced participation of public, private, and cooperative sector strengthens economic development. What are the foreign assistance and international cooperation? Ladies and gentlemen, foreign assistance refers to the economic, technical, or humanitarian support received from foreign countries or international organizations. International cooperation means collaboration among nations for development, trade, peace, and mutual benefit. What are the types of the foreign assistance? Grants, loans, technical assistance, humanitarian aid. Ladies and gentlemen, some importance are following: infrastructure development, technology transfer, disaster management, poverty reduction. And some challenges are there. These are dependency, debt burden, political influence, misuse of aid. What are the major development partners of Nepal? Ladies and gentlemen, World Bank, ADB, Asian Development Bank, United Nations, India, China, Japan, and USA. Ladies and gentlemen, what are the constitutional aspects? The Constitution emphasizes independent foreign policy. Okay, independent foreign policy and international cooperation based on mutual respect. We know that foreign assistance supports development, but excessive dependency weakens self reliance. Ladies and gentlemen, what are the foreign investments and portfolio and direct investment? Ladies and gentlemen, foreign investment means investment made by foreign individuals, companies, or institutions in another country. What is FDI? Foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment (FDI) refers to the long-term investment in industry, infrastructure, and businesses. Some advantages are there: employment generation, technology transfer, capital inflow, industrialization. Some disadvantages also there: profit repatriation and foreign dependency. Ladies and gentlemen, there are portfolio investment. Portfolio investment means investment in shares, bonds, and securities which have direct management control. Some importance for Nepal: economic growth, infrastructure development, foreign exchange earning, and challenges in Nepal: political instability, weak infrastructure, and complex procedures and corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, some constitutional and legal provisions are there. The Constitution promotes investment friendly policies for national development, and Foreign Investment and Technology Transfer Act (FITTA) is implemented in Nepal. Are you know that Foreign Investment and Technology Transfer Act (FITTA) is implemented in Nepal? Ladies and gentlemen, we know FDI brings capital, technology, and employment opportunities. And what is technology transfer, including intellectual property right? Ladies and gentlemen, technology transfer means sharing scientific knowledge, technical skills, machinery, and innovation from one country or organization to another. Intellectual property right (IPR) are legal rights protecting inventions, innovations, artistic works, and trademarks. What are the types of the IPR, intellectual property right? patent, copyright, trademark, and industrial design. Ladies and gentlemen, importance of the technology transfer are industrial modernization, productivity increase, innovation, promotion, and skill development. Some challenges are there in Nepal. These are lack of research, weak technical manpower, limited investment, and some constitutional aspects are there. The Constitution of Nepal protects right to property, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, we know technology transfer accelerates modernization and economic development. Ladies and gentlemen, what are trade, market, and labor liberalization? Liberalization means reducing government control and allowing free market activities. Trade liberalization, reduction of trade barriers such as tariffs and quotas, that is called trade liberalization. Some advantages are there: export promotion, international trade expansion, competition and efficiency. Some disadvantages are also there: risk to local industries and trade imbalance. Ladies and gentlemen, what is market liberalization? Market liberalization encourages private sector participation and competition. What is labor liberalization? Labor liberalization is a policy that is flexible labor policies and employment opportunities. Some impacts in Nepal: growth in private sector, foreign employment expansion, increased competition. Some challenges are there: weak domestic industries, labor exploitation, and import dependency. We know that liberalization promotes competition and economic integration. Ladies and gentlemen, what is economic diplomacy? We know economic diplomacy refers to the use of foreign policy to promote economic interests such as, are you understand? Economic diplomacy refers to the use of foreign policy to promote economic interests such as trade, tourism, investment, employment, and international cooperation. Main objectives are there: attract foreign investment, promote exports, expand tourism, and increase foreign employment opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, some importance for Nepal: tourism promotion, hydropower investment, foreign employment, and international trade. Some tools of economic development are following: bilateral agreement, trade negotiations, international cooperation, and diplomatic missions. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many challenges. Some are weak negotiation capacity of Nepal, political instability in Nepal, limited export capacity in Nepal. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some constitutional aspects. The Constitution of Nepal 2015 emphasizes independent foreign policy, national interest protection. Ladies and gentlemen, we know economic diplomacy connects foreign policy with national economic interests. Okay, economic diplomacy connects foreign policy with national economic interests. Ladies and gentlemen, poverty and unemployment. What is poverty and what is unemployment? Poverty is a condition where people cannot fulfill their basic needs such as food, shelter, health, and education. Unemployment means a situation where people willing and able to work but they cannot find jobs. That is called unemployment. Ladies and gentlemen, types of the poverty are absolute poverty and relative poverty. Types of unemployment are also there: seasonal unemployment, structural unemployment, educated unemployment, and hidden unemployment. Some causes in Nepal: lack of industrialization, rapid population growth, poor education system, political instability, and limited investment. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some effects due to unemployment and poverty: crime and social instability, migration of the people, low living standard, economic dependency, and brain drain. Ladies and gentlemen, there are poverty reduction measures also there: employment generation, skill development, industrial growth, agricultural modernization, and entrepreneurship promotion. Ladies and gentlemen, there are constitutional provision. The Constitution of Nepal aims to end poverty and inequality, ensure social justice, guarantee employment rights. Some important rights are right to employment, right to social security. We know that poverty and unemployment are major obstacles to nation development. Ladies and gentlemen, very important constitutional concept for the your PSC exam are some rights are right to equality, Article 18, right to social justice, Article 42, right to social security, Article 43, food right, Article 36, and employment right is the fundamental right, and three pillar economy means public, private, and cooperative. Ladies and gentlemen, there are most important one line for revision. Economic growth means increase in GDP. Economic development means improvement in living standard, and FDI means long-term foreign investment, and liberalization means reduction of government control. And economic diplomacy means foreign policy for economic interest, and technology transfer means sharing technical knowledge, and poverty means inability to fulfill basic needs, and cooperative means community-based economic organization. Ladies and gentlemen, economic issues are directly connected with nation prosperity, employment, industrialization, social justice, and sustainable development. Nepal's constitution aims to establish an inclusive, socialism oriented economy through balanced participation of public, private, and cooperative sectors. Thank you.